People are always saying to me, why don't you clear off? No, they're always saying to me, why don't you tell me what you're reading so that I, like you, can learn the stuff you know. This has inspired me to do the Russell Brand Read Along Book Club sequence. We won't call it that, it's too long. But anyway, these are 3 books that I would like to focus on as influential books. And one at a time, we're going to go through them. There is The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, who came on our podcast Under the Skin. There's Letting Go by David Hawkins, a fantastic book, somewhat 12-step inspired, and rather esoteric and obscure, Encounter with the Self by Edward F. Edinger, a Jungian commentary on William Blake's illustrations of the Book of Job. These 3 books are well-being books. Now, many people consider personal development well-being to be sort of like a side dish, a garnish, something that you have with your main steak. In fact, my friend Fern Cotton said exactly that phrase. It's her that I'm citing there. But spirituality, well-being, this is the core of your life. It's not a side dish, it's the only dish. It's not a side thing, it's the only thing. Let's start with this book, Letting Go. And we'll do the other ones, Untethered Soul, Encounter with the Self, in subsequent episodes of the Russell Brand Book Club development sequence. I can't remember already what I called it, but it's me talking about these 3 books that have been hugely influential. The book Letting Go by David Hawkins is, as the name suggests, about allowing yourself to experience your own emotions, and I suppose that specifically means, or at least in particular means, negative emotions, such as fear, sadness, anger, and their correlatives and ancillaries such as woe, rage, despair, worthlessness. If I've understood David Hawkins correctly, it seems to me that the man Hawkins there, who devised the technique, I believe, or at least was significant in devising the technique of kinesiology, whereby you harness your body's natural intelligence to adjudicate, for example, whether or not you have a particular allergy or whether a particular decision will be beneficial to you. Interesting technique, something you could look into. But what he talks about here, what Hawkins talks about here, is how, for example, when you feel fear, we have a tendency to either suppress it, repress it, express it, or escape it. Escape, pretty obvious what that means: drink, drugs, distraction. Express, that can be communicating it with other people, which of course is commonly understood to be a positive thing, although what Hawkins argues is that that could be helping us to inhabit and sort of reiterate the habitual nature of a set of feelings by continually talking about your fear. It's like you're reinforcing it after a certain point. Suppression, he says, is when you consciously push down an emotion. Repression is when you don't know you're doing it. We may, for example, have repressed sexual desires or repressed feels. A suppressed sexual desire or suppressed fear will be something you're consciously pushing down. I found this book very, very illuminating, mostly when it spoke about the nature of fear and allowing yourself to inhabit and fully feel fear. Locate it, for example, in your body. Is it in your heart? Is it in your abdomen? What does it feel like, this particular fear? Hawkins makes this vital point. Don't stay with your thoughts. Feel the fear. What is the feeling? Allow your body to process it. Often, he argues, we narrativize an emotion that's present in us in repressed form anyway. We might say, I'm frightened of losing my job, but the fact is the fear is in you, and the thought of losing the job, or even if it is a real possibility, has provoked an inherent innate fear that may otherwise not have been realised. This, I think, is an important distinction and points to the fact that if we don't deal with an inner malady or inner condition, that we can't ever really be healed. Let me read you a little bit of the book. It's from one of the early chapters where David Hawkins talks at length about dealing with crises. There are numerous benefits to handling a life crisis successfully. And let's face it, COVID could be regarded as a life crisis, or if your political views aren't being represented, or if you feel detached, impoverished, lost, alone, desperate. These things are a crisis. For one thing, the amount of suppressed or repressed emotion is now less. The crisis has forced it up to be relinquished, and therefore the amount that is left in the reservoir is much less. There is a greater feeling of self-esteem and confidence, because there is the awareness that one can survive and handle whatever life will bring. And of course, I suppose that's like a Viktor Frankl style appreciation that negative, coruscating experiences can be used to mobilize previously dormant potentialities within you. There is an overall reduction of the fear of life, a greater feeling of mastery, greater compassion for the suffering of others, and an increased ability to help them through similar circumstances. This is the essence of 12-step work, where having overcome one day at a time with the help of others and a higher power, your own addiction, you help other people behind you. Paradoxically, after a life crisis, there is often a period of variable duration of peace and calmness, sometimes approaching the level of mystical experience. The dark night of the soul, it frequently precedes states of heightened awareness. In Christian mythology, of course, before the ascension of Christ, he has 40 days in wilderness, preceding the crucifixion, that are largely regarded to be of incredible torment and suffering, or defined by torment and suffering. One of the best known examples of this paradox is illustrated by people who have had near-death experiences. There are now many books on the subject that reveal a certain commonality. Once the worst of all possible fears, the dread and shock of death, has been faced, it is superseded by a profound sense of serenity, peace, oneness, and immunity from fear. I've noticed with my mother, who has had a very serious near-death car accident and has been close to death, on 8 occasions actually, through cancer, that often at the peak of the experience, in the midst of chemo, radiotherapy, etc., she takes on this sort of saintly serenity and speaks with such clarity and gratitude that it's kind of awesome. And whilst obviously I adore my mother at all times, there is something so unique about how she behaves, sort of inspiring and certainly, as this book says, mystical. Many such persons develop extraordinary abilities, become healers, develop psychic awareness and advanced states of spiritual illumination. They experience major leaps in growth and the sudden appearance of new talents and capacities. Thus, every life crisis carries within it the kernels of a reversal, a renewal, an expansion, a leap in consciousness, and a letting go of the old and a birth of the new. This, of course, in David Hawkins' philosophy, it requires that we do not stay in the thought, i.e., oh no, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, and that shouldn't have happened, this is my fault. Mental static activity, which again and again in my conversations in Under the Skin, I've heard are a limited aspect of the capacities of consciousness that we dwell too much in. Notably, I recall when speaking to the survival expert Ed Stafford, who consulted some Aboriginal folk before going on his 6-month mission into isolation and alienation, they told him that there are 3 minds, and this is neurologically, demonstrable, because there are neurological cells in the abdomen, or stomach at least, and the neurological cells around the heart. And of course, the brain is absolutely awash with the bloody things. But they said, you are thinking too much with this brain, not enough with this brain or this brain. The gut instinct, the heart, follow your heart. In the Aboriginal language of the advisors that Ed Stafford consulted, they said that the word that they use for this brain, the brain that we in our cultures, our technologically advanced cultures, continually live in, is this mind of logic and rationalism. What David Stafford is suggesting is that when we are feeling fear or sadness or anger, we move beyond the thoughts that we associate it and into the body. What is it? Where am I feeling this? What is it suggesting to me? We don't pay attention to the thoughts. We observe them. We stay with the awareness. And what I like about that passage that I read to you there is the suggestion that it's an opportunity for real growth, an expansion of your being. As you know, I'm down with a meditation, and I feel that meditation somehow opens up new terrain in terms of your perspective, perception and awareness. Well, I feel that these exercises where you allow sadness, grief, rage, fear, whatever it is you're dealing with, to fully envelop you, that you don't impede it, you don't express it, you don't try to repress it, you don't allow it to be suppressed, you don't try to escape it through drink or drugs or distraction of any kind, you just sit with it, that a process can take place. It's commonly understood, isn't it, that animals living as they do between the narrow lines of their instincts are able to process rage more. The way my dog shakes itself off, shake it off, shake it off. Is that Taylor Swift that says that? I'm not particularly familiar with the idioms of the popular music age anymore. But like a duck after conflict will shake itself as it moves away from its opponent. We allow trauma to live in our body. The process of healing is not solely an intellectual one. Psychoanalysis and psychiatry can bring us much of the way. but the body knows where the pain is, and we have to incorporate the body, i.e. yoga, the connection between these different intelligences that operate within us. Or, as Matthew McConaughey reminded me in a recent episode of Under the Skin, that religion similarly indicates the connection between these various fields and strata of energy. Next, after this, I'm going to do another book. If you enjoyed this video, please follow my YouTube channel and all of that kind of stuff. But next up, I'm going to do either Untethered Soul by Michael Singer or Encounter with the Self, an analysis of William Blake's drawings of the Book of Job. By the end of this little series of personal development tomes, you know, this was recommended to me, name drop, by Oprah Winfrey. This one I found through the 12-Step Fellowship. This one is deep stuff. Encounter with the Self, very, very deep stuff. Like, after that series, we'll move into some more areas of literature. Thank you very much for watching. Like, subscribe, and comment, because I will get back to you in the comments. Thank you.